sneak under the radar that people aren't really accounting for in some of these matchups.
Yeah, I personally have not really felt that the Highlander Hunter's quite there, but Reno Mage, I have seen it have a lot of fantastic performances. You know, the thing about it is, I feel like it's one of those decks that's vulnerable to aggression, just in some generic forms, but at the same time, like, it has the tools to fend off aggression, like an early Doomsayer or Zephyrus, being able to have a Twilight Drake on curve, and then at times just being able to follow up with AoE and actually deliver counter punches because you've drawn Reno the Relicologist. Like, that is such a powerful card when you're talking about tempo that the Reno Mages, to me, feel more reminiscent of, like, Handlock or even Warlock than they do of, like, a Mage deck that's trying to, like, play really tricky and remove stuff and then finish you off with Burn.
Yeah, so we talked about this yesterday with the Making Mummies Paladin that Silvername had, but if you bring a slightly unexpected deck to the format, and it then baits out the ban from your opponent, like, that's a win. Like, you can put a W in that column for that deck. It has done its job. It's left you with these more generic decks that are just vanilla powerful in the format right now that you can play out through the series. So it's something that we have started to see in more positions in this Grandmasters format, where decks are coming in and people are looking at it and like, oh, I wasn't ready for that. Like, that's an unexpected pick. I have to ban it. And if you can do that in this format and get to play like one extra of the tier 1, tier 2 decks or whatever that are in your lineup, that is a successful strategy for you.
We've seen Silvername take on Hunter Ace in the third match of the day, but for now, we got to go to a quick break. So when we come back, we're going to be jumping into our feature match with Pavel taking on Bunny Hopper to kick things off. Stay tuned.
Hearthstone Esports is home to many competitive formats, each with their own unique variants and rules. Today, we're going to break down one of them, the Shield Phase Conquest format. And here's how it works. To start, both players bring 4 decks, each from a unique class. The match starts with a Shield Phase. This is where both players choose one of their own decks to protect, making it ineligible to be banned. Once the Protect phase has ended, both players will then ban one of their opponent's decks, removing it from the pool. Each player then selects which of their remaining decks they would like to play first, before beginning the first game of the series. When the first game of the series is over, the winner's deck is removed from their pool of eligible decks. Both players then select the next deck they would like to play. The loser of the first game can choose to replay with the deck they lost with, or they can choose one of their other 2 available decks. In Best of 3 conquests, the first player to 2 wins is the victor. In Best of 5 series, such as those in the semifinals or finals of major events, the first player that makes it to 3 wins takes the W. It's that easy. Shield Phase Conquest allows players to showcase their skill set across different classes, while still giving them the opportunity to play the deck they're most confident with. Now that you've got the download on Shield Phase Conquest, we wish you well on your deck building adventures.
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. But this league's gonna save the world.
Match of the day coming up, our featured match between Pavel and Bunny Hopper, and so we're going to waste no time getting right into it. I'm certain that you've seen these two battling it out before on the stage. Bunny Hopper had a fantastic year on the Hearthstone Championship Tour the previous year. Pavel, former world champion. Let's hear a little bit more about him in a video package that we have for you.
My name is Rafael Pelzer. I go by Bunny Hopper. What great things have I done? I won a championship. I have a championship trophy from last year at home. So I think that speaks for itself. I think I should justify being in GM.
Hello everyone, I'm Pavel. My favorite memory of Hearthstone esports is definitely when I won a world championship in 2016 and just took a trophy. I was just overwhelmed. That was amazing.
Yeah, it means a lot to me to be in the Grandmasters program because it feels really great to be recognized, especially last year was going really well for me. I think the only way to play a deck correctly is to take a certain amount of risk. You're losing too many percentages when you chicken out of important decisions. Everybody has a different outlook on the game, of course, but I think my technical play overall is very strong, and I think I'm very analytical. And I think I get a little bit of an edge over other players there.
It feels really good to be in the Grandmaster League. I wouldn't say that my life would have been terrible if I wouldn't get invited to Grandmaster League, but it definitely feels really good to be in Grandmaster. I'm looking forward to play and compete against one of the best players in the world. I'm excited about the opportunity to qualify for the global finals.
It's still sometimes cool to face these players where years ago when you started playing Hearthstone and then you just watch streams, scroll a few years forward and you're in the same division as him. I don't like to do things halfway. So when I practice, I invest a lot of hours. What drives me? I want to win.
I'm looking forward to show everyone that I'm still a really good player. There's no any other player who is better than me.
He was pointing at me
It's a scary boy.
everywhere I look. You know, Pavel's a little troublemaker when you're at events.
Yeah, he is.
Not too many people know this, but if you've ever hung out with Pavel, he's like a little prankster, and he's always looking for something, and it's just a very curious nature that he has, and I don't know, it just drives him to do some interesting stuff, and I feel like it's like a lot of where his gameplay comes from is like sort of that curious nature. He's like, well, I wonder how this works out. And then, well, it turns out it works pretty well most of the time.
Yeah, particularly if you're at a Seat Story event with him where there's just a bunch of props and dumb things for gags just lying around. He will constantly have one of those props and be causing havoc in it. Or like, there's a room downstairs at Seat Story Cup where all the players just hang out and practice, just a bank of PCs and monitors. At one point, Pavel just found like a little kid's toy bow and arrow and was just running around down there just shooting arrows at people. Tens of thousands of dollars of equipment everywhere, monitors, PC. He's just firing arrows around for hours on end. What a guy.
What a guy. He's quite a guy, isn't he? Bunny Hopper, on the other side, I've spent a great deal of time with him at tournaments as well, and he is just a thinker through and through. Like, he, at all times, it seems like, wants to do something strategy applicable and use his brain for something. Like, I've played a bit of code names with Bunny Hopper, and English not being his native language, he sometimes looks at something and goes, there's a thing I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. I have to say it in German. And I'm like, well, Google it then. I mean, it's against the rules, but I get what your point is. Like,
Sure.
I don't think you're trying to cheat me to, like, figure out a +1 in code names.
Yeah.
Lineups.
2 priests protected. Again, no great surprise.
Yeah.
We saw the graphics earlier, which by process of elimination, those were the remaining lineups. So the bans were Warrior being banned out from Bunny Hopper, and we talked about the Mage ban going down for Pavel, which leaves us with Shaman Druid Priest versus Warrior Druid Priest. And I believe our first matchup is going to be one of my favorite matchups right now to watch, just because I think it's pretty intricate. I think there's a lot of room for like discrepancies in playstyle and also discrepancies in how people believe the matchup is favored, and that is Druid versus Shaman.
Yeah.
Quest variety on both sides.
I have gotten a lot of talk about this matchup, obviously, and if you're in my camp, unless Shaman's against a combo deck, it's favored if you want to ask me about it, because I'm a fanboy of the deck, and I will always be that. Casie at length has talked to me at length about the matchup, where he says that former champ is pretty core to the strategy of Quest Shaman if you want to have game against Druid.
I kind of agree with that, yeah.
See, I don't buy this just yet, and I'm curious to see how the matchup sort of plays out. You know, we've seen it on broadcast tend to do okay. It hasn't done the best, but I feel like a lot of times when I see Quest Shaman played, that there are some inherent differences in philosophy that I've had. I think Bunny Hopper is the player who's probably taught me the most about it in my time watching him, because I think he just has fantastic macro game plans the whole way through and through. And if you look at his deck list, he is running 2 copies of Former Champ. So I'll be curious to see how much those come into play as we get through the series. Like, how much is he trying to dig for those? How much is he relying on them for board presence? And what kind of impact do they have?
Yeah, I wanted to make that point because Bunny actually sent me a message during the week while I was climbing ladder with Quest Shaman and said, "Yeah, yo, what's the 30th card in this deck?" I said, "Oh, just play 1 Former Champ." And his response was, no, I'm playing 2 of those. So, like, he was very, very convinced just from that brief interaction that 2 Former Champs in the deck was correct.
I'm not convinced.
We shall see. This is the matchup for him if there is one.
It's not a current champ, it's Former Champ, all right?
Well, is that supposed to be shade at Firebat or something?
I'm just saying, you know, can't always trust those things.
Former Champs aren't always washed up.
I was just talking about what a little trickster that Pavel was. Little prankster. Former Champ's playing a trick on you. It wants to make you think it's good, when in reality, it's the Quest Shaman. That's my opinion.
So wait, is the Quest Shaman, like, purple in this analogy? Like, the guy behind the scenes doing all the work? Is that what's happening?
Well, no, the Quest Shaman would be the play in this scenario, not the decks they choose.
Ah, gotcha.
See, there's some shade for you. If
Yeah,
you want my
no,
opinion,
seriously.
Pavel brought the wrong decks to Worlds, but, you know, that was kind of his point. He wanted to target people who brought Warrior, and that's exactly what he did.
Yep.
That was one of the most enlightening discussions I think I've ever had with Pavel, was him talking about his run through HCT in the year that he won, and in the follow-up year as well, where he did fantastic. And he often talked with Link to me about how he would bring lineups that he didn't feel were the best lineup because he was trying to target something his opponents were doing. He's like, well, yeah, why would I try to beat the person who's playing really well? I want to beat the people who are making mistakes. And so he would target lineups that made mistakes. And I was like, wow, that's really smart. I've not really thought about it that way.
Always tough to know if that is a genuine consideration from Bunny or whether it's just Bunny taking his time. He had Evil Totem, which seemed like fairly straightforward. It's extremely unlikely to get Wrathed on turn 2 from Pavel. You can see Pavel even had the Wrath and turned it down just to get the tick on Quest. But there is, I guess, another play with like Evil Cable Rat Mutate there just to get a 3-drop on board, start representing pressure. But for me, Mutate is a go-to card in this matchup where you'll want to hit it on Mogu Flesh Shaper or Former Champ just because of the huge spikes of pressure you can make.
Yeah.
Like if you get an early Mogu Flesh Shaper into an 8-drop against Druid, they just don't interact with that if you get a big one. And it can represent just ridiculous amounts of damage.
Where's your Naturalize, idiot?
Yeah. I will say that against a lot of matchups, you should be mutating 1 and 2 drops in this deck. A lot. Like, it's very, very powerful.
Specifically the 1/1 versions and
Yes.
the 0/2 versions.
Yes.
You know, mutating a 2/3 into a 3-drop.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, that is I mean, that's pretty close to even upgrade on stats.
Yeah.
I do think that Bunny Hoppers feels pretty confident with this hand. So not a need to use a mutate in this situation.
Yep,
and like you
completely
said,
agree.
like that's one of the reasons that Former Champ would be good in this matchup. It's another catalyst to mutate. But speaking of it,
A drop.
with the Witchy
drop.
Lackey too. You can Witchy Lackey the 2-mana 1/1 on the right side, and then you get the Mogu in for 3 mana. You can drop an Ethereal Lackey alongside of that. Woo! He's got the hot hand. No fear of mind control tech on Pavel's side either, not in the deck.
It's a good note.
If he does not mutate this Mogu Flesh Shaper this turn, I will be shocked.
Alternative play is probably Bog Slosher at an immediate look, just because it generates a fairly similar pile of stats. You get another 2-drop off the Faceless, and you get to replay it in its buffed form afterward. Which I think is also pretty justifiable, honestly.
I'm shocked.
I think this is quite similar.
So you added 2 stats to board, then you added 4 stats to board, 5, 6, added 7 stats to board. I don't know. I'm not convinced. I guess the difference is how does it play with the rest of your curve, right? Like you get to do the Mogu plus things next turn if this doesn't get checked. So the idea is not just this turn setup, but the following turns as
Exactly. You're making Mogu Flesh Shaper cheaper, and with the expectation even perhaps that the on-curve play, weirdly, on turn 4 for Druid is Bees, you might just be saying, hey, why would I pay 4 for this Mogu this turn when I can pay 0 for it next turn?
That is an excellent point, is that Pavel's got 2 copies of Bees in the deck.
Worst case scenario, he was going to pay what, 2 or 3 for it next turn anyway, and then that he still finds a discount. Like I'm totally okay with the Bog Slosher play.
surrender.
And now what?
Well, now I want an 8-drop.
Well, you got to think about Starfall and how it interacts here. So, like, how much are you trading? How much are you cleaning up?
Right.
So we know that one's happening because that one's free. We know that one's happening because that's what you do with the card. We know that's getting upgraded because you
We
want to
don't
be
want
outside
that.
the range
Yep.
of Starfall. The nine's got some hot drops too.
Okay. Gonna go full face here.
So
He can protect his 3/3s from Starfall by trading with his 2/3s, but you do kind of miss a lot of damage there anyway. So you end up with some 2/1s on board instead of some 3/1s, but you've pushed 4 extra damage this turn. Like
Yeah.
that just seems totally fine to me.
to me, the idea here is that the Nozari has to be killed. I'm sorry, Nozari. The Nozdormu. So Nozdormu falls to a B, a 3/3 falls to a B, and you just have enough pressure to deliver lethal so often with the double battle cries.
How much is this remaining, in fact? 3, 6, 8, 10, 11 left on board? 10.
That's a lot.
No bog slosher, so I guess we're lackey fishing and trying to find some lethals.
It is really tough to not find lethal here, whether it be through spell or through lackeys.
Yep. So if he goes Hero Power first, then Cable Rat, if he doesn't find a Kobold Lackey, he can play Ethereal Lackey for specifically Lightning Bolt to get himself out of it.
I'm curious if you Ethereal Lackey first for things like maybe a Bloodlust, Rockbiter weapon,
Right.
Lava Burst.
I don't think Bloodlust is the out, just because it seems significantly... You'd have to only take 1 spell to fish for Bloodlust. So I think that one is out of the picture.
Yeah, so that's what my consideration is. Are there enough spells to upgrade through the single activation?
I don't think so.
Exactly. So my instinct then says Ethereal Lackey first because that opens up Lava Burst. It's just a math problem here. And Bunny Hopper having a PhD, I think that's kind of right up his alley right
Yes. Yeah, it's Hero Power, it's Ethereal Lackey, then it's Cable Rat. Fairly confident that's the most likely. Wow.
now. He says, why lethal fish when I can just make a strong board again? I'm pretty shocked by that.
Ooh!
Wait, what?
Okay.
That
I mean, that works.
the battle cry does not give you, when you double it up, it doesn't give you the same minion
No,
twice.
it's not Khadgar.
That's just an unusual outcome.
I mean, that's insane. That's pretty much just kind of secured the position.
Yeah.
It takes Starfall and Swipe kind of stuff off the table. I mean, Swipe is still relatively effective, but Swipe wouldn't kill the 5/5 anyway. So it takes Starfall off the table, forces Pavel to have Hidden Oasis. Still kind of leaning towards the lethal fishing on the previous turn.
I agree.
So now, assuming 7 goes into that 6/6, he's pushing 7 to face. I don't think you want to trade your 5/5 into it.
Yeah, there's actually not a way to just deliver 6 clean points here.
Well, you can trade the 2/3s, right?
You have to find something to deliver 6 clean is all.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Just unusual. Haunting Visions. You could also
I might just take the Earthquake here, to be perfectly honest.
There's also, I think, some argument for elementary reaction, Earth Shock. And the reason why the elementary reaction ends up being beneficial is because with Bog Sloshers and with Sandstorm Elementals, you often have the duplicate on the card draw active. Like,
Sure.
it's just unintentionally active a lot.
So 13 now goes face with the Earth Shock.
Wow. We've also seen Bunny Hopper be particularly careful with Sandstorm Elementals in this matchup, which was something I learned a lot from watching him in his first go-around with this deck, is that particular card allows you to counter-punch against Oasis Surgers. It allows you to battle through the Hidden Oasis taunts that come down if Cenarius hits at the later stages of the game. I focused all of my energy after I watched Bunny Hopper play into making sure I had Sandstorm Elementals against Druid. Right. And I literally ended up getting to a point to where my Shutterwalk had cleared off a Nomi board. It's just an important card.
So many contradictions.
Talking about Admirable's casting there.
Hey, come on.
Rough choice, honestly. Scenarius most likely going to end up too slow in this position if he's just fighting to survive.
Yeah, we should do the heal, right?
Ancient of War, extremely vulnerable to Earthshock and Hex, and he knows that there's a bunch of random spells been picked up, so yeah, he just defaults down to the most like vanilla defensive thing he can do this turn.
I love how it shows the option of dealing 2 damage, but it's like, wait a minute, that's not a minion. Yeah, Starfall off the table just because of the two eggs sitting on board. Just represents spitting out 6 more 1/1s.
Yep.
10 damage available for Bunny Hopper.
Just witchy lackey those eggs into a nice Wolf Rider.
So single activation. You're like, yeah, I'm just feeling raid leader here.
You just do it with confidence.
What to do?
Pavel cracking a bit of a smile. I think if he sees Bunny Hopper wait that long, he's like, hey, wait a minute, I can win.
Yeah, every turn that passes where Pavel's not dead, the game is entering more and more into his stage of proceedings, where his cards actually start to do powerful things. Ugh. From the battle cry, I'm assuming that the 5-drop was Venture-Co, right?
Yep.
Which I'm fairly sure Bunny Hopper would prefer in this spot.
My calculations are flawless.
Only took us 3 mana worth of cost to get upgraded from a 3/3 to a 5/5.
Ooh, now that Bees does enable the board clear.
Yeah, that does. That's a big deal. I'm going to be honest here. If Bunny Hopper gets punished by not going for lethal in that previous turn, like, that just makes sense.
Oasis Surge are coming from Pavel. She's going to Oasis Surge, just swipe
swiping.
instead.
Ah, okay. This puts a lot of board presence down.
Gets a 5/6 and a 5/1 in play as instead of 4 1/1s.
So from Bunny Hopper's side, this Earthshock and Sandstorm, so I'll be curious to see how those come out. It's definitely that one.
Ooh, that's what he needed. Incredibly dry hand without that. Dead card.
Not dead card next turn. Sandstorms, I think, definitely lined up here. Perhaps just one of them. Leave around a 5/1. 5/1's not too threatening, or it'd be a 3/1 actually if you were shocked.
What to do?
If you Earthshock first, then it will be a 3/2 and the Sandstorm clears it, right?
Oh, you're right. Silence, then damage. Wait, would it be? It takes off the flute buff when you... Because the flute buff is just... I don't know how that works, actually.
What are you asking?
So the flute buff converts it to a 3/4 as its overall base stat. When you take off the flute buff, it goes to a 3/3 now. There we go. Okay. I had to remember the old Malagos flute silence.
Oh, I see what you're
interaction.
saying. Yeah. So the flute transformation is still card text, so silence still removes it, so it goes back to a 3/3 and
Right.
Sandstorm kills it.
Oh, it's 11 mana accessed if you nourish.
The overload there does mean that he can't get the massive Giggling Inventor board on the following turn, but I don't think that's a big deal in comparison to what he's been able to achieve this turn.
He needed that. He doesn't know it.
He needed to not get hit in the face with these minions.
He drew an Anubasath.
He needs his Anubasath to stick on the board so he doesn't get hit in the face with other minions.
You could be something. He's really going to need that star.
All right, Kobold Lackey, come on.
No, you giggling every time, right? Right? Look, if we didn't go for the lethal earlier, I want the board now. All the Starfalls are gone.
Also, I was wrong last time. I thought he was going into 2 overload, but he wasn't. He only has 1, so he can still make the full Giggling Inventor, in which case, yeah, you probably just make the full Giggling Inventor.
Can't believe that card cost 5 once upon a time.
Dude, seriously. You want to hear a real horror story? Extra arms used to cost 2. That is a very dead draw for now.
Well, Pavel is still technically alive. You'd have to expose the War Druid Lodi, but you get an additional taunt that way. You play it and actually rush it in. You don't just keep it hidden as we've seen to be the standard.
Yeah, I mean, he is just technically alive, but he should know that there is a Sandstorm Elemental in his opponent's hand if he's been keeping track of that being the elementary reactions draw. Welp.
Sometimes dead.
This is very lethal in a lot of ways, sometimes.
So, my instinct here tells me to use the Sludge Slurper first then. Make it easier that way. Like, you're going to play basically your entire hand anyway. Does the board space mean anything when you're trying to steal things away? I don't personally think it really means that much, although it can because of the being able to play Sandstorm Elemental on the post side of it.
Right.
So there's still a little bit of sequencing stuff here. A lot of it, I think, is just semantics and debate and stuff, but that's the kind of thing that Bunny Hopper loves maximizing.
There it is. First one out and second one out. Sludge Slurper is like, yo, you should have just played me last turn. Like, come on, I got you, bro. What do you think you're doing? Just play the Sludge Slurper.
Yeah, that game, I think, a demonstration of how powerful Mogu Flesh Shaper and a Mutate combo is. I used to not be a believer in this thing, and then what it just showed was that if everyone else is going to do it, you kind of have to as well, because it is very powerful spike, and you cannot handle it if you don't have it on the other side. So I think in the mirror match of Shaman specifically, it was so powerful, that kind of became core, because there's just other decks it's good against too.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you're just going to play against Druid, like, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, just having a deck that just plays a bunch of lackeys and 2/3s and 3/3s, like, that's not going to be super effective when they have spell damage and Starfall in their deck and can discover extra copies of both of those cards. Like, you need big things to stick to the board. That's where the idea of Former Champ comes in. Really interesting game from Bunny Hopper's side, though. I think a couple of points where we were debating decisions, like the early Mogu Flesh Shaper. I think I'm totally on board with him skipping that with the Bog Slosher and doing it later. That made sense. The first turn he could have fished for lethal. I still think I would have fished for lethal. The second turn he could have fished for lethal. I'm totally on board with him playing the Giggling Inventor. But that's 3 spots with like really, really huge game-altering decisions. And I think Bunny Hopper at least certainly got 2 of them right. It's just that one with the Ethereal Lackey to go fishing. Or Ethereal Lackey and Evil Cable Rat to go fishing, in fact, for lethal, that I have some questions over.
Yeah. And so I think it's a pretty good summary of the deck. It's just a lot of raw decision-making that you have. And once again, kind of learning something. Just take the Mogu as soon as you have it. You can play for it easier later on. I think some of that's in the deck list with the double copies of Bees on Pavel's side. But either way, a great demonstration of playing to your curve and making it as strong as possible. We got a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be jumping into game number 2 of Pavel taking on Bunny Hopper. It's our featured match of the day, and it's just our first one of 5 that we have. Stay tuned.
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. But this league's gonna save the world.
My name is Alexander Malsh. You might know me as Colento. My username Colento is kind of random. I just took it from the MMORPG I was playing. It was the name of one of my characters. My favorite moment in Hearthstone is probably when I won the Game House Cup. It was one of my first tournaments I won, and it probably was the first LAN I won, so it felt very special. So as for Grandmasters in general, I really like to play against people I know personally and I met before. I have respect for them. I think competing will be fun. Being in Grandmasters is a big honor. It's just a proof that I'm a part of best players in Hearthstone. It's not like I need it so much, I just know it myself, but it still feels kind of nice. I'll just perform well at Grandmaster League. I'll try to keep streaming, and I just want to spend the rest of my time having as much fun as I'm having doing my hobby.
My name is Dimarado, also known as RDU. I wouldn't say I'm the greatest. I feel like there are mechanical players better than me, but I still think like because I put also so much work, raw talent, I'm up there in like the top players of the world. I don't believe in the notion of having a play style. I feel like you either play well or you don't play well. At the same time, I think players have tendencies to pick decks. I tend to like combo decks, but I can play control, I can play mid-range, I can play aggro. In an open field, I will just take what I think is like the best. In something like Grandmasters, I think it's more important to be unpredictable and to have some surprises. I think I'm very good at optimizing decks. I can feel what cards are performing and what cards are underperforming after I play a couple games with them. With everything Hearthstone-wise just comes with experience. Having a lot of experience in the game helps you understand the new cards, helps you understand how new cards work, where you should play them, how you should play them, and same goes for matchups. I want to perform for my fans, if I can call the people that watch my stream that, and I just want to play some good Hearthstone and have a good time, because I just enjoy doing these tournaments and I enjoy playing Hearthstone for a living. It's the best.
Featured match for Hearthstone Grandmasters and day number 2 here is underway. I'm Nathan, that's Admiral Zamora. I'm joined by Simon Sato Welch, and we saw Bunny Hopper pick up a pretty smooth sail to victory style win in that first game. Pretty strong hand to go with it, and just capitalizing on those strong hands. I feel like him on Quest Shaman, it just seems invincible so far.
Yeah, it was just too much aggression for Druid to deal with. Once he had the mutate hand to go with it, he was able to create that board state, which played around Starfall effectively, which we were talking in the break, I think is another reason why he chose to hold off for one turn, because then he'd have extra mana to whiff the to mitigate the low rolls, right? So if he whiffs on the first mutate, he can use Witchy Lacquer. I think he actually did it the other way around, but same difference.
Yeah.
He gets 2 chances to get something with above 7 health to really play around that Starfall power spike from the opponent.
Yeah, just a couple of the 8 drops that don't really get the job done. Looking at the Undertaker that showed up specifically in that one, he would have dropped the ball.
Yeah, there's a few of them. Akali the Rhino as well as a 5/5, which wouldn't have been super useful in that spot because there was nothing to trade into. So yeah, I totally agree with that decision.
But if there was something to trade into,
oh yeah,
the second Mogu, whew,
yep,
comes an 8-7 in that one. Let's get into game number 2 between the two of these. Pavel down a game. Both these players sit at 3-1 on match score as well. So this is a big match on both sides where whoever wins this one takes the lead in their division.
Huge implications for both players. We've heard Pavel say multiple times that he really, really wants to be regarded as one of the best players still. He wants to prove that no one is better than him. Bunny, almost dismissive in the way that he answers that question. Like, you hear it in the piece that we ran just before this, where he says, what motivates me? Like, I want to win. Dumb question. Like,
next question.
Yeah, move on.
Why am I here? I won championships. Next question. What's my name? Bunny Hopper. Yes, I like cute little fluffy animals. Next question. I remember asking him right around the time that Battle Royales were like the big kick, like it was like the new thing and all the cool kids were doing it. I actually played some BRs with Bunny Hopper. And I was like, we got on the topic of where he got his name from, and he started expressing to me at length the amount of time that he spent playing FPS games, and how the thing that he always loved about players in those games were the mechanics. And so learning how to do a mechanic called bunny hopping, which just accelerates your movement speed and gives you better control in some scenarios. And I was like, so your name is Bunny Hopper because you got so good at the mechanic bunny hopping that they just called you Bunny Hopper instead of what your screen name was? And he's like, yeah, that's right.
So all the way back in 2015, Bunny Hopper qualified for one of the very, very first seasonal championships in that new format as a complete unknown. No one knew who he was. The majority of the players who did qualify for that were complete unknowns because it was the first time we shifted to an open system and the actual good open players got to show that they were some of the best players in the game. Bunny Hopper was one of them, and I like went deep in the tank, just like Google researching him, like trying to find information on him. One of the only things I could find was like a stat tracking site on like a CSGO website or something. And I was like, all right, fair enough.
Priest is this is a tough matchup for it. It's Bomb Warrior, so it's a little bit better.
Yeah.
But overall, it's just Warrior versus Priest. Priest just has a very tough time sticking things in play.
It does, for sure, yeah. You're right in saying that Bomb Warrior does become a bit easier because they're a little bit more limited in what they can do in just straight out of hand removal. They do have to fight for board with a few more of those extra minions that they have available. But it's one of the few go-to decks to really keep Priest on a tight leash right now.
People are going to hate to hear me say it, but Warrior's one of those decks that's kind of holding a lot of the glue together. It keeps, like, it's one of the few things that's actually keeping Priest in check. Honestly, it keeps a lot of, like, really disgusting aggro decks in check, too. Like, there'd be so many busted aggressive things you could do. And I think for Bunny Hopper here, I see this Divine Spirit, and I'm getting an idea or two.
It's very, very hard to pull yourself off Injured Blade Master Circle of Healing, right? Like, that's just the one thing you want to go to in most situations. But, yeah, making a 10-10 in this spot where there's just no real answer to it.
I mean, if you really want to, you could make a 12-12.
You could, yeah.
I think that Bunny Hopper's probably going to land on Injured Circle here, given that he has shown, I think, a lot of discretion where it's concerned of going all in. Just kind of looking at last game.
Yeah.
Now, how does the favor of the match change perhaps his opinion on that matter?
He has also said in various interviews that he thinks that there's a lot of percentage to be lost in positions where you don't take big risks. But I think the word risk in Hearthstone is extremely nebulous as to what it means. It's where the debate about right and wrong and play styles versus just making the highest win rate play just really like comes to a head.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's really hard to have an injured Tolvir on board, an injured Blade Master in hand. Both of those cards say injured on them, and you have a healing card with 0 mana in your hand. Like, that just makes sense. And just logically, this is the right way to go about it as well, because your injured Blade Master isn't contested by anything in Pavel's deck there either. And then so you have a 7 health base on the board for the following turn if you want to go that route anyway.
All right. I am in firm belief camp that Bunny Hopper is not going to be making a big minion.
I think Psycho Pomp is extremely powerful this turn.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at too. Like, I think with High Priest, Ahmet, Light Warden, and Psycho Pomp in hand, he's got just the gas to battle with. And so, in my opinion here, if I had to just try and predict the future, I think he's going to try to play it a little bit longer. And then I think the next couple of draws will dictate where this ends up landing. If that Light Warden had, say, been a Power Word Shield, you might be looking at a totally different story.
Right.
At that case, you might be looking at trade into the 3-2 with the 2-3, load up, make the 18 attack here, and say, go ahead and 50-50 the brawl.
You do run into a slight issue with Ziliax if you make that play as well. You just don't have any answer to the big Ziliax.
Just top deck of silence.
Sure.
Don't be a big baby.
I think that trade is smart as well. It would seem like the obvious play would be to send the Tolvir just into the 3-2 and take your face damage and then do the same thing. But because of those magnetic threats that I was talking about, and even Dynomatic, like, this makes life a little bit more awkward. He just has to suicide a 3-2 into a 2-6 to play a Dynomatic here.
Doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to. We have even seen that exact thing from Pavel in this tournament.
No.
Sometimes that's just going to be one of your best chances. You know, it's rare, but the point is opportunity. Whereas trading's so final. It's done.
I've got more left in me.
Pavel making nice use of a Super Collider here to just keep cleaning up board, too. Couple things to think about for Bunny Hopper. Number one, he actually doesn't have to think about Shield Slam in the matchup at all. It's not in Pavel's deck. Number two, no Plague of Wrath, no Execute effect, nothing like that. The major removal points are Restless Mummy and Brawl. Super Collider's the big kicker. That one's kind of interesting, but honestly, I like that card a lot in Bomb Warrior.
Why is that?
Specifically, it's because your opponents try to offset your aggressive play by getting on board. And so in spots like this, you get to make use of Super Collider. It's like a way to claw back into the game without just having to shove all your pieces into the middle and hope that it works.
Okay.
Dynomatic, I think, is an important card to Warrior, obviously, but we've been seeing Control Warriors cut one of them sometimes. Like, Bomb Warrior does not have that liberty.
Right.
It has to play Dynomatic because you've got to get that board tempo.
Ooh. If this is the whole turn from Bunny, he's going to be in some trouble. Yep, Pavel, no hanging about. He sees 5 health, he jams the Dynomatic. It's going to be uphill for Bunny Hopper from here.
The old 3 minion, 21 health worth of them on turn 6.
Yeah, unfortunately, Brawl doesn't care too much about your minions' health.
It's a true story. I'm curious how much that, you know, I think Bunny Hopper's turn here, it'll be interesting if he deviates from that. But on Pavel's side, I'm looking at how you want to distribute that Brawl. Like, do you use Super Collider first and then trade with the Dynomatic first? Like, do you want to weaken across the board before you Brawl? Really, most of the objectives, I think, go to Pavel's side, where it's Bunny Hopper, it's create the most annoying objective, and then Pavel's is figure out the right tool for the right job.
The response might not even be Brawl from Pavel either.
Very easily be Ziliax.
Ziliax plus the Super Collider hit can take care of one of the 7 health minions anyway. He only really leaves himself vulnerable to, like, 3-card combos.
Oh. Well, that is quite curious. Although I do believe Pavel's hand is going to get him out of this.
Loading up Snip Snaps, doing the responsible thing, trading into the Armet here. Bunny Hopper does get himself an injured minion on board, so he can start drawing some cards if he wants to.
So Divine Spirit there would have been 1 damage off lethal.
9/18, yeah.
So if Bunny Hopper plays Northshire Cleric and heals, he has Power Word Shield for lethal. I'm sorry, Power Shield into Divine Spirit for lethal.
Does he have enough? 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, yeah. Circle of Healing as well, right?
Yeah. Anything that just generates more health on it.
And draws a card, crucially.
Correct.
So Beaming Psychic is a whiff.
Is someone
9% Ritualist.
Yep. No, that's too expensive at that point.
It's Topsy, right?
Oh, yeah, it's Topsy. Yeah, okay, good point.
Quickly.
Oh!
Oh, he's just 1 damage off.
Yep.
Pavel's gonna recover.
in the light's name?
Maybe not, though. I mean, like, Silence is still in Bunny Hopper's deck, too.
Right. So the problem here is if he plays the Ziliax to recover health, then the Armet lives.
Oh, boy.
can play Ziliax and cut away the card draw, so there's less chance of Bunny Hopper drawing the outs, but then you are leaving up the Armor and a Light Warden, which you are also buffing from having your Ziliax in play, which also seems terrifying.
All right, I want to be real here for a second. The only removal effect in Bunny Hopper's deck is a copy of Silence.
Yep.
Wild Pyromancer is potential to be removal. If I'm in Pavel's spot here, I'm thinking, how do I brawl? And I think that's the way you brawl.
Completely agree.
If one of Bunny Hopper's minions lives,
okay,
you have Fright and Flunky. And so I think Fright and Flunky was what prompted this brawl opportunity here. And even though he's just at 1 health, I think that 1 health is enough to get by with this hand. 2/2 Mordens. I'm sorry, with the 2 Morden and the Ziliax.
Yep.
Like Bunny Hopper, there's no direct damage in this deck. There is no charge, nothing. You have to connect face with a minion.
Holy Ripple was a card that players flirted with for a little while, and that would have been the god draw right there.
I mean, it was a good run, but I think we're going to see game 3. That's just the nature of it. Priest is, I think, right now inherently an aggro deck. The brick wall.
He needed Bozzzton that turn if he was going to have any real chance of digging himself out of it. He needed the card engine. Just get a couple of beaming sidekicks, North Cleric, another Light Warden. Give himself the opportunity to make another huge board further down the line. With the brawl gone from Pavel, he might get something to stick. Probably just too late now.
Oh, he was so close. It was so close.
Bunny gonna wait it out.
Yep. The full recovery.
Is someone injured?
You have best.
He needed bomb somebody, he got a bomb. Bunny Hopper is gonna give up game number 2.
I didn't even realize that. Bomb Swamdy. It's just...
Totally lost my train of thought. Now, yeah, Pavel is going to square out the series 1-1. It's Priest going down for Bunny Hopper, which, you know, he did protect in the series. Pavel did the very same thing. But it's that warrior that Pavel got through, essentially, because his mage was banned, right? Like, that's what freed up that warrior to be played. 'Cause if you look over at the other side, Bunny Hopper's warrior is banned because he has kind of more conventional decks across the board. So with the conventional decks, it seems the conventional strategy is protect Priest and then your opponent bans warrior. That's what we've been seeing quite commonly.
Yeah. Pavel's Priest is built a little bit differently than Bunny Hopper's is, though. Like, that's something that I'm really looking at to be a kicker in this matchup because Pavel included a second copy of Extra Arms. And he's like, yeah, I like the beaming sidekicks, but what's this Bon Samdi doing here? Now I'm cutting that one.
That's the weird part. I think saying, you know, this Bon Samdi card, I don't like it. Like, I agree it's a good card, that it probably should be in the deck, but I think right now we're kind of on the hype train of like how genius this was and that it just blows the deck wide open and it's so much better now than it was before. Like, it's one card. It makes a difference, but it doesn't make an enormous difference, right? So I can understand saying, I like having this consistent smooth curve where I don't just draw this big clunky drop in my hand all the time. But to then make that decision, but then also put in the extra support cards that you play in the deck because of Bomb Samdi, that's where things do start to get a little bit weird. So I'm kind of curious if we're going to see this Priest from Pavel and how we're going to see it play out. If so, and we are indeed, it's everyone's favorite, the Priest mirror.
Extremely volatile. as you might have guessed, I do agree and disagree with you. I
Whoa,
think the Blonde
no
Zombie
way.
is a fantastic inclusion. It does come with some cons, though, which you mentioned the consistency of curve. That's definitely one of them. But the second one is that when you have a slower card that's more dedicated to the late game and you're including beaming sidekicks alongside of it, what ends up happening is that your deck does get thinned from some of the tech options you could have. There's a little bit less, spell tricks that are available in the deck.